Hello. In today's lesson, I'm gonna show you guys how to multiply and divide rational expressions. This is lesson 10.4. We already started lesson 10.4 um, last week when we did the multiplication. And if you guys remember, we said that when we multiply rational expressions, the expression gets reduced. Okay, so I have a one warm-up problem since we don't have warm-up problems this week. And then I'm going to go over this warm-up problem with you guys. If you want to try the warm-up problem now, you can try it when you download the flip chart. Um, so this assignment is basically going to be a video on the flip chart, and then there's going to be a flip chart that you complete. Once you complete the flip chart, you print it as a PDF, and then you put it in the Dropbox. Okay. So over here, we're trying to reduce that expression. Okay, so all we're gonna do is just factor the top and factor the bottom. Okay, so let's look here. Now, if you look here, we have b squared plus 2b. Now, we have a GCF, a greatest common factor, b squared and the 2b. So we need to pull the greatest common factor. So between the two terms here, b is your greatest common factor. And you're going to have a parentheses. Now, what are you going to have in the parentheses is the factor part when you factor out b. Now, b squared, take away p, you have that p plus, and then there's one p here, you take away that p and you're left with just 2. Now, if you notice here, if you remember that this, if you multiply the b inside, use one of the pen tool. So if you multiply the b inside, b times b and p times 2, you're going to get the expression on top here back. In the bottom, we're going to factor using the box method, and I showed you guys the shortcut to factor using the box method. Now, I expect you now that you don't have to use it in the easy problems like this, you don't have to use the box method, but when you have a complex problem and you can't factor it, then go ahead and use the box method. So let's go ahead and look at what we have over here. We're looking for two numbers, so we're going to have x. Now we're looking for two numbers. When we multiply the numbers, we get -10, and we combine them together, we get -3. So these are two numbers that are 2 and 5, because 2 times 5 is 10, and when you subtract them, you get 3. But you want to know which one would have the negative. Now, the -5 needs to have the negative, because when you combine the -5 and the 2, you get the middle term. So you get the -3. So it's x minus 5. And then here, x plus 2. Now, if you notice that there are two factors that are the same from the top and bottom, so this factor right here reduces with that factor, and you're left with just b on the top. And then on the bottom, you're left with x minus, or apologize, we're using p. I made a mistake here. So it's b minus 5. Probably you guys caught that mistake. I didn't see that. So this one should be p. Because here in the problem we're using p. So you need to be consistent with the problem. So that's what you have, and this is your final answer. Okay, now let's go ahead and look at the actual lesson. So let's go ahead and try to do one problem. Alright, so we have here, we're trying to multiply those two polynomial. So we're going to factor each one. Okay, I'll do the dot with the pen here. Okay, so let's go ahead and factor the top. If you look here, this is not factorable. There's no great GCF, greatest common factor here, so we just write it down. So it's n minus 5. Now let's look at this part. Now if you look here, n squared plus 4n, there's a GCF here of n. I'm going to pull the n out. And inside the parentheses, I am left with n plus 4. And this is factored now. Now, if you multiply the n inside, again, you should get this back. Alright, so here, we are factoring this quadratic equation. Okay, so let's stay consistent from now. So n, we're using n. You're looking for two numbers, you multiply them, you get 16. And then when you add them together, you get 8. I know you're thinking 4 and 4 now. So plus 4, and then here plus 4. Now we're going to do the same thing on the bottom. So we are looking for two numbers. When we multiply them, two numbers when we multiply them, you get negative 10. Combine those two numbers, you get negative 3. This is just like the one we just did on the warm-up, since we know that. So it's n minus 5 is one of them, and n minus plus 2, I apologize, plus 2. Negative 5 times 2 is negative 10, and negative 5 plus 2 is negative 3. And now let's do the reduction. So I have an n plus 4 here, and a 1n plus 4. I have an n minus 5 here, and an n minus 5 here. And I look now, there's nothing I can reduce here. So the final answer for this problem is n plus 4 on top, and then on the bottom I have n and n plus 2. That's this part and this part. Sometimes you can multiply, sometimes they ask you to put it in the simplest form, and that's to multiply the n inside. So n times n is n squared, and n times 2 is 2n. And that would be your answer. But I'm going to leave it this way. So this is your answer for that one. Now let's look at division problems. This is new for you guys. But really we're not going to do anything new. We're going to apply what we learned about fraction. If you see here that I can change this one to a fraction. Now remember, when we divide fractions, we can't divide fractions. We change the division to multiplication. So what I'm going to do here I am going to change this one to a multiplication. Now when I change this one to multiplication, this one stays the same, so x, and then I need the exponent part, x squared plus 4x minus 5. And then on the bottom I have 3x minus 3, and then here, remember I flipped the second fraction, so I'm going to have the 1 here on top, and then on the bottom I'm going to have x squared plus, actually it's minus 25. And then we're going to factor here. So let's go ahead and factor to reduce. So here are two numbers you multiply, get negative 5. You combine them, you get 4. And this is negative 1 and negative 5. So x minus 1 minus 5. The bottom greatest common factor here is 3, so I'm pulling the 3. So I'm left with x minus 1. And then here, remember that this is difference to square. This is x, and then 5, and negative 5. So I'm going to still have the 1 on top. And then on the bottom, I'm going to have x minus 5, x plus 5. And you start reducing. So x minus 5 here goes with this x minus 5. And x minus 1 here goes with x minus 1. Now I'm left on top with 1, 3, and x plus 5. So your answer is going to be 1. On the bottom I'm going to have 3 times x plus 5. And that's your answer right there. So this is your answer right here. Okay, so good luck. Finish the rest of the problems. You have more problems here. I'll leave you guys to finish those problems.